And we're back, baby! Yeah! You know it!
Hey guys, welcome to the Nice Guys Podcast. I'm Judd, and with us today is... Becca. She is one of my oldest friends. Middle school?
7th grade.
7th grade is when we started hanging out, whatever. And she is actually first legit Patreon supporter that was not a family member. So
Not
thank you,
your mom.
Becca. Yeah,
Your
not
mom's
my mom.
the first.
My
She's
mom
the
was the
best.
first, yeah. But, you know, since Brian's still out and about, like I said, I'm going to have guest host till he comes in. So she's going to be with us for the next 3 episodes, and we are very appreciative of that. So thank you, Becca, for
You are most welcome.
taking some time off to
happy
come
to
in.
be here.
Yeah.
Time off.
Yeah, right. You've been out of school since when?
Well, you know.
Because she's a teacher.
Yeah.
And on
All the
top of that,
time.
she works for the Cardinals,
Yes.
and they're not playing. So,
Right. So I started grad school.
yeah. Well, there you go. That's,
you
yeah.
know.
Well, you're taking a break from grad school
That's
then.
right. I didn't want to write this paper this weekend anyway, so it's all good.
That's fine. But so anyway, so I, as well with Rachel, like we did last guest host, I had her pick 3 topics that we're going to talk about. And the first one, Becca, as you know, I said she worked for the Cardinals. She is a huge baseball fan.
I love baseball.
So she came up with this amazing bracket like Brian used to do. So as you can tell, she does really watch
I do.
our podcast. Brian, thinking we don't have fans. Anyway, she came up with a bracket of a best
90s.
90s.
Well, okay, so they start in the late 80s because there were some good ones
Yeah.
at like the end of the 80s. And they go into like 03, 04.
Something like that, yeah.
There's like a 15 or so year.
But
gap there, but
it's a great list. I'm
lots
looking
of
at this
baseball
list
movies.
going, I don't disagree with any of these. The only one I haven't seen on here is Fever Pitch.
Oh, and that's
That's
like
it.
the newest one.
Yeah, and that's the only
It's
one I haven't
actually-
seen.
Other than the fact that it ends with the Cardinals losing the World Series that
Well,
year.
yeah, but,
which, you
yeah.
know, other than that,
Yeah.
it's actually a pretty good, like baseball movie.
So-
so yeah.
Yeah, so we are going to do this bracket. We're going to find out what Becca thinks the best, and I guarantee you that she's going to be wrong, but right at the same time, because there's like 5 movies on here already that I know that are like you can't pick. I can't pick.
I have a lot of favorite baseball. Matter of fact, since we haven't had baseball, like I haven't been working, there hasn't been anything to watch on TV. It's been like literally eating away at my soul because I love baseball that much, as Judd knows.
Yeah.
And so I've been just like watching. I have a bunch of these, not all of them, but I have a lot of those on DVD.
Yeah.
So I've been literally just putting them in and watching them over and over again because I gotta get a baseball fix somehow.
So we're gonna do that, and then we are gonna discuss baseball. I and Cardinals pretty much for the most part, but baseball because I do love the Cardinals. I was a big fan of the Cardinals in the '90s, so I know a lot about that. And Becca's just a big fan of the Cardinals, period. So we're gonna talk baseball, Cardinals, all that stuff. So anyway, let's get into this with this fantastic. I guess it would be Sweet 16.
Yeah,
What we got here.
and let's just tell everyone how they're set up. So when I put them in because I pulled up the list of movies and put them in order. And so the bracket, just so everyone knows, it's not like rigged.
No.
They're literally just in order from the oldest release date to the newest release date, and so they're just paired up 2 by 2 all the way through.
Which is tough because the first one you have on here, they're both very good movies.
I know. Like I looked at it and I was like, oh god, this is gonna be hard.
Yeah,
Like I don't
so-
even know if I want to.
The first one is The Natural versus Bull Durham. So you got just a classic, great, old-timey baseball movie versus one of the best baseball comedies there is.
Yeah, I looked at that and I was like, well, here we go, right off the bat.
Right, so...
So I know that most people that I know, like baseball fans, would say The Natural is like the best, most iconic baseball movie. However, me personally, I gotta go Bull Durham.
You gotta go Bull Durham, okay.
I cannot watch that movie without just cracking up. I know every line. I've seen it so many times.
It's like you and me with Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I gotta
Which-
go Bull Durham.
Becca and I were part of a group in high school that we literally once a month watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
That's like what we did for fun. We were
Right.
like, we got together at someone's house and like
watched
8 people would sit around and watch the movie like we had never seen it before.
And quote it
And
constantly.
quote the whole thing. Yeah, like that's what we did for fun.
So we were huge nerds. So
pretty much.
which not much has changed apparently.
Not a whole lot.
So second round is Field of Dreams versus Major League.
See, and that's another tough one. Again, Field of Dreams, a kind of iconic, classic baseball movie, and Major League is just in a totally separate realm. But I'm gonna have to go with Field of Dreams.
Okay, good. I was gonna say there's no way
I mean, Major League's good; it's up there, but I think Field of Dreams just edges it out for sure.
I was gonna say. I mean, I'm not. The first one was tough, but I would have gone natural. But that's just because I like Robert Redford, and I thought that story was fantastic.
I think the most people I talk to who love The Natural are guys.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think it's definitely.
Well, and that's the same with Field of Dreams though too, because
Yeah.
it's a father-son movie
Yeah.
at the end of it.
Yeah,
you know?
there's definitely a tie there that I think just doesn't appeal to girls as much.
Yeah.
So
this one is probably my toughest one.
okay.
And it's A League of Their Own, which is phenomenal, and Mr. Baseball, which is probably my favorite baseball comedy.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I know which way you're gonna go, but what are you thinking?
I'm gonna go A League of Their Own.
Yep, that's what I would thought too.
Yeah.
But I Tom Selleck as a guy playing in Japan, and he's like 8 feet. He looks like he's 8 feet tall compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic movie. But A League of Their Own, Tom Hanks,
So good.
Gina Davis,
Yeah.
fantastic movie. You can't go wrong with that one. So that was a good pick.
And it's kind of, the other side of baseball with the girls playing the baseball and how, it has a whole different like element to it that a lot of the other
Which a lot of those girls, like based on the actual story and whatever, they were amazing baseball players.
Yeah,
so.
like it's a good story to kind of, especially like I said, to get the girls on the involved and interested in baseball.
You know what would be great, I think, is if they took a Negro League team and did kind of movie about that.
Yeah,
because
that would be
I went to. Have you been to the Negro League Museum in
I have not.
Kansas City? Oh, it's fantastic. It's amazing. But I would love to see a Negro League movie, documentary, whatever on it. Like maybe pick a player, because I know they did the one about. Why can't I think of his name? 42. Jackie Robinson,
Yeah.
which was really, really good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But I would like to. There's some amazing Negro League baseball players that have gotten lost in history because of the fact they don't. Anyway, let's keep going.
That'd be cool.
All right, now this is the first kid one.
Yeah.
This is The Sandlot versus Rookie of the Year, which this is another tough one.
Yeah, these are tough ones. So I'm gonna have to, I think, go with Sandlot.
Okay, I had a feeling you'd go Sandlot. That is, I can count on probably two hands how many times I've watched Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But I can't even tell you how many times I watched The Sandlot.
Yeah.
And, all that stuff. So, all right, second set is Major League 2 and Angels in the Outfield. This one would be an easy one for me.
Yeah, Angels in the Outfield.
Really?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah,
see,
go down. It's easy for me, maybe for a different reason. I like the Major League movies, and it's and we talked earlier. It's the only sequel on the list of the movies that we have, right?
Yeah.
And the only reason it's on there is because it's actually a very good movie. Like
Right.
even for a sequel, it kind of can stand on its own. I love it, but I think I still gotta go Angels.
It's because Christopher Lloyd. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know. I love Christopher. That's funny that Major League and Major League 2 are already out. Like
Yeah. Again, had I tried to structure the bracket, I might have put him somewhere else. But
I didn't even notice this one.
oh,
Basketball versus the love of the game. I have to switch my favorite. I never really considered that as a baseball movie, but yeah, basketball is probably my favorite
baseball
comedy
yeah.
movie.
It is good. But
Which was for the love of the game?
Yeah.
Was that
So
Kevin Costner as well?
Yeah, so that's Kevin Costner. Yeah, lots of Kevin Costner
Yeah,
in
well,
the
yeah.
80s, 90s. So yeah, that's for love of the game. I'm gonna have to go with that one.
Yeah.
That is one of my probably top 5.
That's the one where it's kind of telling a story while he is pitching a perfect game, right? Yes.
Yeah, so it does a lot of flashbacks to show his journey getting there, and he,
But that's what I thought. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good. I like those movies where you really get into the psyche of the players, because that's something that we don't I can watch baseball all day long, but having that almost like a behind the scenes kind of look at the actual players themselves, I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
So.
All right, next one is 61 and The Rookie. Now, I have to admit, I've never really seen 61 all the way through.
You have.
I need to. I know I need to.
I should have brought it with me. You have to watch it.
Yeah.
That is, I'm going to tell you right now, of all movies, not just baseball movies, of all movies of all time, 61 is in my top 5.
Okay.
So 61 for sure.
Okay, I think we're going to know who's going to win this.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think of just baseball, just in terms of baseball movies.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's, again, one of those where it looks at, like, the background of the players.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fun, but at the same time, it kind of takes you through that 61 season where Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's home run record. And I just love it. I think there's a lot going on there. And it's a really, again, I could quote the whole entire movie, and I watch it just because I like the movie. So.
Okay, and the last one is Mr. 300 versus Fever Pitch, which... Like I said, I've never seen Fever Pitch, but I loved Bernie Mac and Mr. 3000. Sorry, 3000, yes.
I'm going to have to go Fever Pitch.
I had a feeling you would.
Yeah, I like it.
But I love... he comes back from retirement to get 3 more hits or whatever it was.
Well, Fever Pitch is a little more a romantic comedy.
Was that Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon, right?
Nah.
That's not Fever Pitch?
Yeah, that.
Okay, because he's a big Boston fan.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Bull Durham versus Field of Dreams in the next round.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to go Bull Durham.
Yep.
It's got more actual baseball in it than Field of Dreams.
Every man hates you right now, just so you know.
I know.
I'm just joking.
In terms of baseball. Like,
no, it does. It does, yes. That's true. So you got A League of Their Own versus Sandlot. This is a tough one.
This is a tough one. Oh, man. A League of Their Own or Sandlot. Oh, man. This is so tough. I think I'm going to have to go with Sandlot.
Really? See, I would have gone the other way.
I think I'm
I love A League of Their Own, so.
I do love it. That's a hard one.
Okay. Then we got Angels in the Outfield versus For the Love of the Game.
For Love of the Game.
That's, that one, yeah.
No question.
And then we have 61 versus Fever Pitch.
61.
Yep,
Yeah.
I knew that one.
Again, way more baseball and way more fun than
Right.
Fever Pitch.
All right, so we got Bull Durham versus Sandlot. Now, this is tough because it's 2 comedies versus each other.
I'm still going to... I'm going to go Bull Durham.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Now you got even more people, 90s people not liking you.
I know.
You're going to take the 80s movie over.
I am. I know I shouldn't do that.
And then you got For the Love of the Game or 61.
That's a tough one. Oh, man. I think I still got to go 61.
Okay. Okay, I personally would pick 60, even without seeing 61. Yeah. I would pick 61 over Bull Durham for your finals, but that's just me.
Okay, so you go 61. See, this is like always the debate. These 2 are both like movies in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Bull Durham or 61. I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm gonna go 61.
Yeah, I would too because of the fact that Bull Durham's a comedy.
Yeah.
And it's great, but 61 is based on a true story, and I will take a true story that, even if it's loosely based on a true story, I'll take that over or whatever. Well, but I mean, this is nonsense anyway because we all know that Field of Dreams was going to.
Most people hated me a long time ago.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So write in your hate mail to @BeccaDillon.
That's fine. They'll spell my last name wrong. It's okay.
Yeah, they probably will. Yeah. So, but thank you for that. That's fun. That was fun. So, all right, we got a little bit of Brian, even though he's not here with us.
I was like, what can we do? Like, I could talk about baseball all day, all the time, but there were so many good. And it's weird because when I was looking up, like, okay, what are baseball movies? There's like really spotty.
There's a lot, though.
There's a lot, but they're kind of spotty in like the early movie days, you know.
Because when we were talking beforehand, I brought one up that you didn't even think of, which was Little Big League, which is the little boy whose grandpa dies and he takes over the team and becomes the manager of the Minnesota Twins, which I loved that movie growing up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how it didn't make the list. It just I just glossed over it when I was there were so many there. You know, before the like mid '80s, most movies were they were based on historical facts. You know, there were like 3 or 4 Babe Ruth movies or Robinson movies.
And then Eight Man Out.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of just like for fun kind of baseball movies. They were very biographical.
Yeah.
And
really, you only have one on there, 61, which is a biography. All the other ones are fun.
Yeah. And and then after, like, once we get into the 2000s, they kind of turn into things like rom-coms, and they turn into, like, totally movies that aren't really, they have a baseball theme, but they're not really about baseball. They don't show a lot of baseball. Yeah. And so, but there was a whole lot there in the 90s, and I was like, you couldn't run around without having a baseball movie or 2 or 3 every year.
If you were a kid in the 90s, you had The Sandlot and Rookie of the Year, which were fantastic, and then you kind of, if you had any kind of, and even Angels in the Outfield, those were 3 big movies. And then the early 2000s, you had The Rookie, which I loved.
Yeah.
And that's another one that's based on a true story, though, too.
Yeah.
And then you had Basketball, because by the time that came out, we were old enough to be able to go see those movies. Yeah. So, but I mean, you had a lot of good stuff from the 90s, early 2000s on there.
Yeah, and even like not being able to see those in the 90s, even like in college when I like rediscovered all these baseball movies I didn't get to watch in the 90s, they held up for so long. They still hold up, a lot of them today. So real good movies.
So anyway, like we said, Becca is a baseball fan. She works for the Cardinals here in St. Louis as a kind of her second job.
So yeah, I work on the concession side, so I'm like a contracted employee. Yeah. So I work for Sports Service.
Oh, okay. But well, she works at Busch Stadium.
At Busch Stadium. Yeah. So I serve drinks at Busch Stadium.
So which is great, because there's been a few times she's like, "Hey, Jed, you want to go to a baseball game?" And I'm like, "Sure."
No, that has nothing to do with my job, because I get 0 perks from.
Oh, you don't get anything like that, huh?
No, they don't give us. I get a couple of the giveaways every year they'll give us. So I might get a bobblehead or whatever, but we don't get a lot of stuff. They expect if you're available, you would be working, and so they're not going to give you tickets.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because then you have to take the day off work, and it's kind of counterintuitive. So. But I just like to go, so I will take my own days off, and then I'll buy my tickets. And a lot of times I buy 2 or 3 tickets. I'm like, okay, now who's gonna go with me?
Yeah, right.
Like I want to go, and I don't care if I go by myself.
So, well, there was one time that you went, and our buddy, guy we went to high school with, Chris, and I went to a game. Yeah. And you went through the line like a few times to get because they had a promotion going.
Yeah, something I wanted one for me and one for another friend.
And so
she by myself.
Yeah, and she went and she just used both tickets and got it. So, but yeah, she's done that. But now I do have a question for you. Like when we were in the World Series, you work those games too?
Okay, yeah, I have a great story.
Okay, go ahead.
So when we do playoffs, again they use the. Keep hitting this microphone. I work in the party suite.
It'll hit your back eventually.
I know. I just talk with my hands.
Because you're Italian.
I know. I'm not. That's
I
know. I work in the party suite, and so they'll use those rooms still. They're premium. They sell them for a good price, so they still use those during playoffs. And so I will work sometimes when I can, and by then I'm usually back in school, so I only work weekends. So if I'm lucky and the playoffs fall on the weekend, I get to work. If the playoffs games aren't on the weekend, then I sometimes don't get to work. But in 2011, when the Cardinals were in the World Series, I was originally not going to be able to work at all. I missed almost the entire playoffs run because they were all Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right in the middle of the week were the home games we had. And then we had that rain out where Game 6 was supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And so it got pushed off, and it turned out that Friday was a day off school for me. So I was like, yeah, I can work Game 6 and 7. So
there you go.
Getting to work Game 6 and 7. And when the World Series rolls around, the party suites actually get transformed because they need more space for press. Because the home team has to provide a certain amount of space. In a normal game, it's the visiting teams, their radio and TV people. And then it's the TV radio, the home team's radio and TV people. So it's not a lot. But when you're the only game going on, they have to provide all kinds of space for all kinds of press people. So all these people from all these newspapers, all these TV people from the whole country are all in town. And
sorry, Chance is chasing his tail.
Lots of fun over here.
Lay down. I can hear him clanking his mouth and all that stuff. It's going to show up in everything.
That's the background noise.
That is, yes.
And so anyway, so they turned all the third floor party suites into press rooms. And I ended up having to work in one of those. So I'm not serving beer like I usually do because they're not drinking. I think the whole entirety of Games 6 and 7, I was in the same room with the same literally 10 newspaper people. Mm-hmm. So they're all on their computers typing away, not talking to me at all. They don't care. They're trying to get a story written. They're trying to watch the game, and I couldn't cheer. Because there's a rule in press boxes.
Oh no!
You're not allowed to cheer. You can't moan and groan if something bad goes wrong. You can't cheer. You're supposed to be impartial, and so you can't. You just have to sit there and watch. And you know how much it was killing me, Jed. It was killing me to not be able to cheer when something went well. And you know how crazy Game 6 was. Game 6, it started off as like boring, like bad things were happening, and then something was like really good, really bad, really good, really bad, and I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself, and I couldn't cheer. I kept having to walk out in the hall. Like I would just walk out of the room so I could cheer, or so I could be like, wah, and then I'd come back in the room and like stand there all composed. It was torture. It was torture.
I was in the same boat as you that night because I was working the night, and then the guy that I was working at let us off early so that we could get home and catch the last few innings of the game. Well, my stepdad was asleep, and so my mom and I were tucked up in my bedroom watching the game when David Freese hit the triple, and I'm like, because my mom's like, we gotta be quiet because David's sleeping. I'm like,
yeah.
So
well,
we were
Freese,
the same thing.
Yeah, David Freese is I actually. Being from around here, he's a local kid.
Oh, Brian grew up down the street from him.
Yeah, well, and his mom taught at our middle school. So even before he got to the Cardinals, when he was still in the minors, I kind of followed his career a little bit because when I would watch him play, I was like, he's got something, like he can be really good. Like I want to see where he goes. So
that was like Luke Voigt.
Yeah.
Because I used to watch him at the YMCA up in Wildwood.
Yeah.
And so I watched him grow up, and we did the job I work at now, we did a shower for his dad's house. And I looked at him and told him, I said, if your son just keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to be in the majors for a little bit. And, of course, he's playing for the Yankees, so that's the same thing, yeah.
So, like, having followed his career, even though he was still a fairly new, player to the Cardinals in 2011, that was really where he established himself, he really wasn't before that. Like, not being able to cheer for one of my favorite players that I've been following for so long was just... At one point, I think one of the writers who was sitting right in front of the bar, he turned around and looked at me because it's like something happened, and you could see it on my face. And he goes, you could cheer if you want to. I don't think anybody's watching. I was like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm okay. And I said, I'm gonna step outside. And I turned around and walked outside, scream, cry, whatever. And then of course, when they won the World Series the next night, same room, same people. I'm pretty sure I was like on my knees on the floor behind the bar. Like I was just it was so great. Like. Having seen it, granted I'd seen it in 2006, but in 2006 I was in college, so I was like watching it in a bar with friends. So I wasn't really experiencing it. Yeah, but I wasn't like experiencing it the same way at the ballpark. But being in the ballpark when they actually won, like I couldn't even stand there. Like I was so excited, It was awesome.
Yeah. So let's go into a little bit about. So you're just a huge Cardinals fan to begin with.
Yeah.
Now, like I said at the beginning, I'm a big 90s Cardinals fan. Like, I was super excited when we won World Series and all that stuff. But the teams of the 90s that we had, I mean, I still remember a lot of, like, two of my favorite players were Tom Pagnozzi and Todd Zeile. And they were, like, really not popular unless you were in St. Louis.
Yeah, my two favorites, Ozzie Smith, but that's like everybody's favorite, but he was always my favorite, and Tom Pagnozzi. Those are my top two right there.
Well, and then, Brian tried to kill Ozzie Smith by running him over with the car.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But then I mean everything that happened, and then when the 90s ended, was fantastic with Mark McGwire breaking. Speaking of 61,
right? Yeah.
Breaking Roger Maris's record of 61, and just the battle between him and Sammy Sosa. And then what people don't realize is it was actually a 3-man battle for a little bit because Ken Griffey Jr. was keeping up with him.
Yeah.
And by far, one of my favorite players of all time, Ken Griffey Jr. But he got outshadowed, and it was horrible to see that because he was just as good. But yeah, because I always think about like Gary Gaetti and Willie McGee, St. Louis's favorite.
Oh, man.
If you're a Cardinals fan and you don't like Willie McGee, you're not a Cardinals fan.
Town.
Yes, please do.
Never tell anyone that that's your feelings.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things. It's because he hustled.
Oh, I've actually met him.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
I've a couple of times in the past couple of years, I've just been put in a room to work that night where it's been a room that has like former players in it. Last year they had the 2004 World Series team. It was like 15 years.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah,
and they were like literally the entire group, every single dude and all, and like family and everybody were all in my room for like 4 straight, what's wrong with her? For like 4 innings of the game. Right in front of my bar stood Whitey Herzog and John Mozeliak.
Oh yeah.
For like the longest time, just like shooting the breeze, talking about baseball, like doing all kinds of stuff, and I was just like, this is my life, like,
right?
How freaking awesome! And like the guys just hanging out, and I'm serving drinks, so they're coming over to me, and I had a whole full bar. I'm mixing drinks for all the guys, like it was super awesome. But I met Willie one time. I met a whole bunch of the guys, but Super nice.
Yeah.
Super great. Great
Yeah,
folks.
and then of course we have the Cardinals Hall of Fame here in St. Louis, and I was super excited when I heard Ray Langford was going to get inducted because you want to talk about a hard player.
Yeah.
I mean, his first run scored was him plowing over a catcher for to win the game for the Cardinals. That was his first game as a rookie. Like him and Brian Jordan out there in the outfield. Oh my goodness! So like I said, I was a huge '90s Cardinals fan. Like and the funny thing is, how many times did we make it to the playoffs in the '90s? Maybe once.
Not very.
That was our
not enough.
but they never quit.
No,
and
they
of course
played
Lee
so well.
Smith, which is one of my all-time favorite pitchers of all time, was the closer here for a long time. So I mean, like I said, I was a big fan. And then on top of that, I remember closest game until I was older, which we sat right behind home plate, just whatever one year. But we were 3 rows up from third base, and I got a foul ball one time, and it was off of Jeff Bagwell, who I really liked actually. And so I was super stoked about that. I was like, I actually got a ball. I got a foul ball in a Cardinals game. You know.
And I as many games I've been to, I have never. Ever in my life gotten a home run ball or a foul ball. Like, no, I've never actually caught a ball that was in play ever. And I feel like I grew up in Old Busch Stadium. Matter of fact,
I was upset when
they tore it down and they built the new one. Like, I knew it had to happen. Like, again, the place was old; it needed to be changed. But that happened while we were in college.
Yeah.
And I remember they like set up a time lapse camera on like the parking structure across the street, so you could because it came down in sections. You know, like blew up this section and that one. And then when they, the whole thing was down, they started building the new one, the Cardinals put, the video online of, all the different clips of the whole thing coming down. I kid you not, I sat in my dorm room and I cried watching it come down. And my roommate looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, Ashley, you don't understand. This is where I grew up in my childhood.
Right. Well, that's
here.
The thing is, the thing about which is not really Old Busch Stadium, it's Busch Stadium number 2.
Yeah.
Because there was...
But
the
one we have now is 3.
3, yeah. The atmosphere. Is completely different there than it was at the new Busch Stadium. Because I was never at Sportsman Park, which became Busch Stadium 1.
Yeah, we never
experienced that. But the atmosphere at Busch Stadium 1, especially during the playoffs.
2.
Or 2, yes, sorry. Busch Stadium 2 during the playoffs was nuts. And if you want to talk about a place that you could get a good wave going.
Oh,
because it was a straight just circle. That's all it was.
Every tier was a circle all the way around.
And everybody could see everybody, so you knew exactly. And I mean, you literally had games in the 90s where everybody but maybe a handful of people were actually doing the wave.
Yeah,
it was nuts.
Well, and it kind of helps that the Cardinals weren't as great those years.
You had to keep
you had
to keep yourself occupied.
Yeah, but at the same time, they were so entertaining. That was the thing about the 90s. They weren't the teams overall weren't great. They didn't accomplish tons of feats, but at the same time, they were entertaining. They were fun to watch.
They always put up a fight.
Yeah, they were really athletic, and they did you just wanted to see them on the field trying something.
Yeah.
And because of the leadership they had, they weren't afraid. They went out there. They played whitey ball.
Then La Russa or not La Russa. Torrey, Joe Torrey for a little bit, and then of course, then Tony comes in and his attitude and whatever changed the whole. Yeah. The whole look of St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, they played just such just nitty gritty. Let's just get here and play baseball. They were just fun to watch.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah,
for sure.
And then of course everybody loves when Ozzie was there. The first thing he'd do, he'd run out to the shortstop and do his flip.
The big flip.
Yeah. So which
it's pretty great.
And we talked to everybody we got to get in there. We got to see Ozzie's flip. We got to get in there. Nobody, you had to get there and at your seat before.
I wish he could do that, but he's getting a little old.
Oh, he probably still can. That's how he got away from Brian's car. He flipped over. No.
Big old backflip right over the front of the car.
I just thought that was funny. He goes, dude, I almost killed Ozzie Smith. I almost ran him over.
Don't tell Becca. She might actually kill you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So.
You destroy yourself.
So,
especially in St. Louis. Don't tell people that.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, maybe don't tell people.
No, don't tell anybody, which he already did. But, I mean, he's done all kinds of stuff, like stealing pies which he didn't steal.
The pie bandit.
Yeah. Sure. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap this episode up. Like Becca said, she could probably talk for years.
Hours.
About
baseball starting now, so I'm so excited about.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I think it's going to happen.
I don't. They have so many people complaining that they're getting the coronavirus already. This whatever. They either need to just figure something out. I'm dying without any kind of sport. I mean, I'm to the point now where I'm thinking about watching the Korean baseball league because they're actually playing.
That's kind of fun.
I've heard
too.
it's really good. Not
So-
bad. It's not as good as
Yeah.
United States,
Right.
the MLB, but I hear it's pretty
But,
entertaining. So.
Yeah, it's not horrible.
No, it's not horrible
So,
by
yeah,
any means.
I just want something. I just want actual.
I need something,
baseball,
like, yeah.
Give me some MLB of
Because
some kind.
I've heard hockey might not even go now.
Oh, man.
So
Yeah.
I'm going nuts with that sports. I'm a
holding
huge
on
sports
hope. I'm
guy.
holding out hope that I'll see some kind of baseball on TV.
If baseball comes back, I will become a huge baseball fan. I'm not very happy with what's going on right now. I think the players are being a little selfish.
But so are the owners. I think
they both are. Yeah, no, I get it, but
it's been a kind of a shit show,
Yeah.
the whole thing. So,
But anyway, we're gonna wrap this up. Becca's gonna be back with us for the next 2 episodes to talk about a couple other topics that she wanted to talk about. So just remember, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Please hit like and subscribe. We also have a Patreon, and our merch is out. The link to our merch is on our Facebook page. If you want to head there and check out the merch. As always, Becca, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
And we will see you next time.